We're good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for being here. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. And this is the Cottonwood Heights City Council work session. My name is Mike Wickers. I'm the mayor of Cottonwood Heights. We're going to begin with item number 2 on our agenda, which is a review of our business meeting agenda for tonight. We have a fully packed meeting. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Matt's not here, but I was gonna ask him to lead us, so hopefully he will. I'm sure he will. Item 3 on our agenda is a proclamation. And we are going to honor the Hillside Plaza Citizen Advisory Committee that has spent so much time over the past year helping us to get to where we are today. So we are going to officially honor them. Just a reminder, we'll actually have a dinner with them starting at about 6 o'clock as well. That should be fun to spend some time with them. Item number 4 for this evening is an acknowledgement, and we are going to, we have a citizen in our city who went to Brighton High School and lives in Cottonwood Heights who won the Miss Utah pageant and who is leaving on the 27th of December to compete for Miss America. So you know probably the former Miss America lives in our city, Charlene Wells. Mm-hmm. And so she actually was going to try to be here, but realized she's a judge in the competition and probably shouldn't come. So, but anyway, we're going to do a formal acknowledgement from the city and wish her well. And I think it'll be fun. She's got a bunch of people coming with her. So I think it's a cool experience to do that with her. We have our city council reports that we do monthly. So hopefully you're prepared for those. We'll have a citizen comment period. And then we have 8 action items for tonight. And so we'll start with item 7.1, consideration of ordinance 419, amending code chapter 2.140 to add the Health in the Heights Advisory Committee, something that we need to do with our advisory committee that we're creating. Mike, anything you want to say to that? We've talked about it a lot. Jared, anything?
No, I think we talked about it last time, and so if you've got any questions or anything, Sandra is here if we've got questions for this portion of the meeting.
Questions or comments from the council?
So basically, it remains, the language remains the same as it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I read through it, but there were no changes highlighted, so I made the assumption it remained the same.
Correct. Okay, and then next item 7.2, which is consideration of ordinance 427, which is approving or denying the Tabachi annexations. We'll officially do a vote on that this evening. Any questions or comments on that from the council?
I can reserve my comment until the business meeting.
Okay.
I'll make a comment.
Okay, perfect. Then next on the agenda, item 7.3, consideration of ordinance 428, amending code section 19.89.190 regarding short-term rental violation penalties. Mike, did you want to address that real quick?
Yeah, super quick. This was kind of directed by the council a couple meetings ago. It had to go through planning commission first because it's amending a chapter in the zoning ordinance. The change itself is just an increase to the penalties for operating a short-term rental outside of the bounds of the city's ordinance as it is today. So all we're changing with this text amendment is the first violation within the 12-month period is raised from $250 to $650. Second violation is raised from $500 to $800, and then the third violation remains $1,000. So just 2 numbers being changed to increase the fees for non-compliance. Planning Commission reviewed this, unanimously recommended approval.
Great. Any questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment that while this is a good start, we all know that this is not a comprehensive solution. And the 3 things I would like for our council to ponder going forward is the need for a business license that includes the mandate that business license number appear in any advertising that owner may make. And that if the owner does not reside in the home, that he has local management that can attend any challenges within a 1 hour maximum time period. Um. good thing. Anyways, there's additional things that I know what we can look at going down the road, so I'm,
In my council report tonight, I was gonna mention our first committee meeting. So if you wanna send those to me, the committee, it's on our radar.
Right.
The main goal is to increase compliance. And then whether we change policy or not is to be discussed.
And remind me sometime, I've got an update for you on just what the state's doing and some of the data we might have access to.
Great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I
Thank you.
keep forgetting.
Okay, item 7.4, consideration of resolution 2024-72, approving an interlocal agreement with UDOT for converted tap funds. Matt, anything you want to add to that?
No, sir, we've gone over it. It's those two sections on Creek Road. We'll have further discussions at the retreat in January.
We mentioned we didn't have to move forward, but
We
this is,
don't, but we can sign up and get it
we're eligible
held.
for it as long as we do
Yes,
this.
correct.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, item, questions, comments? Item 7.5, consideration of resolution 2024-73, approving an event agreement for the 2025 Butlerville Days Carnival. Jared, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we were waiting on them to get us their dates to make sure they were available. As we typically do this last weekend in July, which falls on the 24th this year. It's one of those dates. So they finally agreed, got back with us and we've got it's just the agreement that we do with the carnival each year.
What are the dates?
You were gonna ask that. It's that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I can't remember if the 24th is Thursday or Friday. Anybody
Oh,
knows?
so it's still the same.
Same weekend, just if we were concerned that they wouldn't be available.
yeah, that'd be the 24th through the 27th.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
26th or 27th?
The 24th is a Thursday and the 27th is a Sunday,
Yeah,
so the 24th, 25,
26th.
26.
Yeah, okay.
27th, we worked
Glad
with
we don't
Tina.
have to move it.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, item 7.6, consideration of resolution 2024-74, approving a grant agreement with the Utah Division of Arts and Museums for fiscal year 24-25. Jared, anything?
Yeah, and again, this is just an annual agreement grant. We applied for 6,000, we for some reason got 6,075, so. It's just the agreement to be utilized by the Arts Council for the various events we do throughout the year.
Okay. Perfect. Any questions? Thanks. Item 7.7, consideration of resolution 2024-75, consenting for an appointment to the Arts Council. Jared, tell us what we're gonna do.
This is the list that was sent out last time. Again, we talked a little bit about it. This is by no means the final list, but just as a reminder, this group was put together originally, when you started this process, just to kind of get it going and moving. These people are all still. I'm sorry, Arts Council. I'm reading the wrong one. We actually interviewed Brinley Walsh, who's really excited to be part of the arts community here in Cottonwood Heights, has some good background, and she wanted to be part of the Arts Council. So we had a vacancy. We have several more. So if anybody else wants to join, we'd be glad to have them apply online and we'll take a look at it. So we're recommending that we appoint her to the committee and then, or the Arts Council. And then also at the same time, Shane and I were talking and Laura Garcia's appointment is up in February. We thought we'd just do it at the same time and both of them will expire 3 years in February.
Great.
So,
And Laura Garcia has been there a while and done great work.
yes.
So we're excited to have her continue. Questions? Anything? Okay. And then the last item, Jared, we'll get to is consideration of resolution 2024-76, approving members of the Health and Heights Advisory Committee.
So again, this is the committee we talked about last time. There are still spaces on this committee as well. The biggest, and Sandra can correct me if I say anything wrong, since I mentioned she has much more knowledge on this than I do, but the biggest consideration when appointing members on here is that they fit within one of the 12 sectors and they have some expertise. It's similar to the Architectural Review Committee where we're looking for qualifications as well. But we're open to new members. Ellen sent me a couple that we'll talk to and maybe bring forward for your consideration as well at some point. So we just need to reach out to them and find a time where we can sit down and talk with them.
How many members are currently?
Currently, there are 18, including not just citizens, because you've got also those representatives from the school district and
Remembering up to 25?
up to 20, the 30 in the
I think we
ordinance.
changed it to 30.
Okay, so
Has it
there-
changed since we last saw the list?
the list is not changed yet.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thank you.
But we'll double check the number. It used to be 25, I think. Did you change it to 30?
We changed it.
Okay. So there's lots of room.
Flexibility. Thank you.
And then that's it. Mike, one thing that we didn't mention with Hibachi, do you want to just mention quickly?
Yeah.
What, the HOA did to get to this point?
Sure, yeah, so we had talked about this, numerous times earlier in 2024. The last kind of remaining item was a pending plat amendment that they were going through. I categorize it as a technical adjustment to their subdivision plat. That took them a while because they were working through some issues with ownership and the water department and, some of those technical things you have to do when you amend a plat. But basically, this is kind of hard out of context, but there was an old stub road that stubbed out right over a sheer cliff at the top of the gravel pit, and they were,
Yeah.
it is right at the edge of the precipice now. So obviously, doesn't functionally go anywhere. So what they were proposing to do through Salt Lake County was vacate that right of way and absorb that space into what is lot 15 of the Tavachi subdivision. So to give that lot some more acreage. And then just 2 lots to the north, on the north edge of the subdivision, they dedicated a new water line easement adjacent to lot 14. So they had to go through the technical process through Salt Lake County to get that approved. That went through the county's Mountainous Planning District Planning Commission and got approved like 3 or 4 weeks ago finally, and got that plat approved. So now there's no outstanding development application live. If we had voted on it and annexed them in and that process wasn't done, we likely would have had to start all the way over and didn't want to do that. So they finished that out. The previous council direction was wait till they finish that up and bring it back, and now it's back.
And one of the things that was really important about that as well is that easement can also provide for a secondary ingress egress.
Yeah.
That could eventually hook into the what do we call that? Gun Club
Gun
Road?
Club Road, yeah,
Gun
that
Club
upper
Road
section
the
there.
Shelby property. So the fact that it now exists in a place that could actually do it was important for us that secondary access could be created. So
Yeah,
so I just wanted to, we didn't mention that. Yes.
On this, can I say just one more thing? Should you decide to move forward with this, Chief and I talked and he had a great idea to. Until this is gonna take some time to go through the Lieutenant Governor's office, get signed, actually go into effect. But in that meantime, with the split between UPD and the Sheriff's Office, they're struggling a bit. So the chief offered to go ahead and. We won't switch 911 over. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we will provide contact information to these residents and start serving them the best we can, even though they're not technically in our jurisdiction.
The earliest effective date would be July 1.
Think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. July 1. But we wanted to at least start providing them that service. So it's not a non.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I would like to make a statement, Mayor.
Sure.
And I want to go on the record that while I am a welcoming person, I have nothing but the best feeling toward the residents who live or own lots in Tavachi and the homeowner association. I remain opposed to this annexation. I urge the council to consider to wait to make this approval, and that would likely have to be a new petition from the HOA. I feel that it would be wise to wait and see how the lots fill out, how this emergency roadway is built, how it functions. Again, when everything is fully up and running in the months or years ahead, before we take on the liability, which I feel from everything I have been able to ascertain, it does put the city at a physical and financial liability to go through this annexation based on the position of this acreage and the roadways associated with it. The research I've done shows that because it's a private road, it would not receive federal monies from FEMA should there be an earthquake or something substantial. And so if the state has some mechanism to come in and help a private HOA rebuild this roadway, I've not seen the paperwork on that, and I feel it's our due diligence to look at that. And I also am concerned that should the roadway become dilapidated or damaged over the years and the HOA is not financially able to handle that, that a future council could obligate the city and our taxpayers to maintain and or rebuild that road so that those residents would not be stranded up on that plateau. Due to this and other circumstances, I am not going to be able to support the annexation tonight.
Okay, thank you. And then the last item on our agenda is approval of our consent calendar, which is approval of the November 12th and November 19th work session and business meetings. So, okay, we're gonna move to item number 3, and we're excited to have with us some important members of our city. So the Parks, Trails and Open Space Committee, PTOS for short, is here to give us an annual report. So we're excited to have Mike Vincent and to have Zach Geiger here with us. And so why don't you come up to the table, and we're excited to hear your report.
Want me to stand up at the front or sit? Thank you. Well, thank you for having us. As we mentioned, my name is Mike Minson. I'm finishing up my term as chair of the Parks, Trails and Open Spaces Committee. There wasn't really an agenda of what you wanted to hear, so I thought what I would do is just kind of give you the highlights of what we did this year and also some ongoing projects that we've started and that will continue on into the next year.
Perfect.
I guess just by way of introduction, I've lived in Cottonwood Heights since 2015, and before that, I grew up in Sandy, so I didn't come from too far away. I live in District 1, Creek Road, kind of by Crestwood Park. I've been on this committee almost since it started, but not quite. I think I joined within the first year of it, but it's been a great committee, so I'm grateful for your predecessors that started this committee. To start, I wanted to organize my presentation kind of by the name of our committee. Parks first, then I'll talk about trails, and then open space at the end. But for parks, some of the things that we've been doing this year, the first one on this list, the Park Improvement Project. This was the brainchild of the person who will be the chair next year, Chris Owens. And what we have done is we have, as a committee, each person has taken 1 or 2 parks, and we've gone out and we've inventoried it and gone around and just collected ideas on how can each park be improved, whether it's by recommendations for tree plantings or other landscaping, or for just different walkways, different amenities, whatever it might be. And we've compiled a master spreadsheet of ideas. And then over the next few months, we're going to work and prioritize those lists and come up with recommendations for how all of our parks can be improved. Now, these will have, obviously, some might have a budget request or some grants with it. Some might be things that can be taken care of in much more minor ways. But the goal with this is to just take our inventory of current parks and come up with ideas that they can be improved. Next one, park master plans. This one we've had great help from Ben Hill on, and to come up with a list of parks that we think we should prioritize the master plans. We understand that master plans can be quite an undertaking, both with resources and staff time, and it's not something you can just do for all of the parks. So determining based on the life cycle of where the parks are, where the playgrounds are, which parks are most in need of, I guess, a redesign of a new master plan, and come up with a list that we can then present to you on our recommendations. This year, we've had presentations, we've had guests come in and talk to us about adaptive playgrounds that allow children with special needs that need different playground equipment, and something that's lacking in our city, and giving presentations. And this actually goes in with the park master plan, which parks will be well suited for that. We're thinking Mountain View might be one of those, but we're going to look into it more in depth and be able to provide a recommendation for which, I guess, which we think should be, but which parks would be most well suited for playgrounds of this type.
Have you looked at if there's a huge increase in cost? I have wondered. I know that at Anzac Park, they redid that recently, and I have wondered with some of these that we've done, why we haven't taken on that initiative. And I'm just wondering if it's more cost prohibitive to do something like that. That's more of an adaptive playground. I don't know.
They do seem fairly expensive in the presentation we got. And they are, it doesn't seem like at least the best practices of the put in one piece of adaptive thing. It almost seems like the entire playground needs to be structured in that way. And so it is something that is best done all encompassing the park. Yeah, not ad hoc one piece at a time.
Yeah, okay.
Crestwood Park, I know this park is a Sully County park, not a city park, and that creates so much consternation with the committee and probably with you as well, but it is one that is always on our committee's mind. This year, the county came and presented, and you're probably aware of this, they were getting proposals for a new master plan to replace the old master plan that didn't lead to anything. And then there was an open house that got a lot of attention. And so we've been heavily involved in always discussing what the county is doing or not doing with Crestwood Park and what ideas we have, but don't really have much to say on that, except it's always on our mind and always looking for things that we can do to work with the county and make things better.
Well, and there's a lot of emotions around that park. I think everyone here's been talking about that all the time. And I actually had someone reach out and said, they're starting to tear down the pool tomorrow. And we actually talked and sat down with the county. They're like, that is not the plan. So there's a lot of things that are out there that people are coming up with ideas. I've heard of baseball fields in Crestwood Park as well. And so there's a lot of emotions around that. I'll give the police department, I don't know if you knew this, but code enforcement spent some time down there because the city, as you know, put a new off the leash dog park in place. And because there's an off the leash dog park, I think if residents would like to take their dog off the leash, they should probably go to the park that's for that purpose. And so code enforcement spent some time down at Crestwood for about 3 weeks and actually started giving some citations to people that were having their dogs off the leash, and said, I would encourage you to please visit our other park that is there for that purpose. So anyway.
That's good to know. I did see those vehicles down there a couple times, at least myself.
Yeah.
The Mountain View Pollinator Project, that was something that was another brainchild of Personas that we did the RFP process at the beginning of the year. We got funding for phase 1, and the phase 1 is now complete. So we were excited about that. And then we are looking forward to ways to finish the project in future years. The volunteers in the park, the VIPs, this was an award-winning idea from our member Rona Cohen. She came up with it. I assume you're probably aware of it, but just in case, we get park captains to oversee each park and then a bunch of volunteers, and they just kind of adopt the park, adopt a highway kind of idea, but for the parks. And it has been incredibly well received, lots of volunteers. And I think now this year, all of the parks are fully staffed with park captains and volunteers, and it's going really well.
So cool.
This year we've done, for our newsletter blurbs, we've been doing park highlights. For each month, we highlight a specific park. We talk a little bit about the history of the park and the amenities in the park and some of the VIP programs as well. I think if we're not out of parks, we will be soon, but that has been the highlight this year. The park donation program. This was something that was successfully done with Ferguson Park, where members of the community have been able to just donate in a charitable fashion to improve the park, and then they get some memorial park bench with their name on it or something. And after that was successfully implemented, we've been looking at ways to expand that to other parks and found out some of the obstacles that will have to be overcome before that can be fully done. That's in the works as well. We've been working on identifying places where we can improve pedestrian access to parks. This year there was recently a mid-block crossing for Bywater Park that was finished, and we are looking for ways and looking for places we can prioritize other access to improve pedestrian safety and access to parks. And then the last one on this list, the service area alignment. This is something to mention, I suppose. It's come up a couple times, and this has been a hill it's mostly just been educating us on that this is even an idea, I suppose, to combine the Parks and Rec service area with the city alignment and what that could look for. And on that, I would just say, if it's something the city council is interested in us being an advisory council for, we're happy to educate ourselves and provide any input. If it's something that you're interested in, we obviously don't want to overstep on anything, but we're here as a resource if it's something that you'd like. Moving on to trails. Trails have always been one of the top priorities of this committee, especially the top one has always been Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Since I've been on it, that's always been something we've been very interested in, being able to expand the Bonneville Shoreline Trail so it goes across our city. We understand that there are many obstacles to it, and that it seems to be something that we all have the same goals, and the city council is very much aware of, and we appreciate your interest in that and your efforts. And another topic, and with Deb Smith as well, that was more of a hot topic this year. Something else the committee is very interested in having access to that canyon. From my sense, it seems like it's something the council is fully aware of, and again, we see things the same way. If there's anything again that we can do to help, we're happy to do it. Again, we appreciate that it's a priority for you and it is for us. Ferguson Canyon Trailhead parking this year, we're able to help provide some suggestions, I guess, on how to address parking issues that have come up and how to work with the now expanded parking access at the dog park and what the best way is to make sure that people still have access to the canyon, but maybe reducing parking and helping with the concerns up there. So we provided advice on that topic. On the Utah Open Lands parcel, there's, I guess, two aspects on this we talked about this year. One of them was providing some feedback on an initial concept plan on parking and an initial trailhead. I think the hope is once Bonneville Shoreline Trail is expanded across the city, this is a great access point to the trailhead, but also talking about whether there's other things that we do with that land in the meantime that would be beneficial to the city. The Big Cottonwood Canyon Trail this year we had wayfinding signs that were installed in that and resurfacing, and then there was a joint, I guess, party with Holiday to celebrate those things happening. And then finally, on the trail side, the East Jordan Canal Trail, I understand that there's been some a study to see how feasible it is to continue expanding that. The current section that we have is great, but expanding that beyond, and as a committee, we're interested in prioritizing that and seeing, I guess, where on the priority list resources to that should
We'd
go.
love to get that connected to the Big Cottonwood eventually.
Yeah, the more connectivity we have with trails, the better. And finally, on open spaces, most of this will be Zach, so I'll turn the time over to him. But the one thing that I won't do on Zach is just the public space tree planting. We're talking about coming up with a priority list of using the committee's resources and knowledge of the city to identify places where there are tree plantings that could be used when you have extra trees from the tree sale that the city does, or other opportunities to increase the greenery in the city. Just being able to present that list to the council. With that, turn it over to Zach for the active transportation subcommittee.
Any questions for Mike?
No, any questions first, but I figure they can ask you.
Questions?
Thank you. Thank you for serving so long on the PTOS committee, and it's been a privilege to be the liaison with you and your committee, and thanks for all you do. These are two men that have done so much for our city. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
The presentation. Yeah. All right, so I will provide a few updates on what we've been focused on with our active transportation subcommittee. And just so everybody's clear, we fully support the whole mission of PTOS. And then we have kind of our niche, if you will, of things that we're focused on for the city of Cottonwood Heights. And our group is represented here. Jen and Brad came as well. And they have a lot of passion for this. So it's been great to work with members and come up with different ideas on this. So really our mission when we think about Cottonwood Heights is thinking about safety when we're talking about all citizens being able to access different forms of transportation, in this case specifically active transportation, and how it interconnects our city as well as our parks, trails, and open spaces. So is there a safe way for us to do this in our community? And that's our goal, is to help improve this. One thing I wanted to mention is everything that we try to do is data focused. So we're looking at not only the data locally here on what our citizens want, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the surveys we've done, but we look at data on a national level and even sometimes international level on what has worked. And that's anytime we're making recommendations or coming up with things, we're not just going by our feelings of what we think is right. We're actually looking at things that have some data behind them. This is an example of something that just came out recently. It was looking at car dependence and satisfaction with life. And this was in the US, and it was about just over 2,000 respondents, but they found that people who had to take more than 50% of their trips out of the home, that reduces their overall satisfaction with life. And I just thought that was interesting. And then one thing that they took away from this study is strategies to promote multimodality and reduce car dependence are warranted in your community. So I think this is a good study, again, to benchmark, the need for active transportation and exploring these options in our community.
Where did the study come from?
This was in, it was Science Direct, but I have to look. I know it was in partnership with Arizona State University, but the journal it's going to be published in is it's gonna be like in April of next year, so this is just the online version of it.
Can I ask a quick question also? When, in that study, was there and I know it's probably difficult, and it's a national study, did they consider rural, suburban, and urban as different demographic segments in doing a study?
I don't think that they divided it up into different, I think they just overall just asked respondents based on like how many trips they had to take per day and percentage wise.
To that, good question. So it wasn't that they chose certain places in the country, they just,
Makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about rural, then you probably only have people that's their only way to get around, so.
But it likely was suburban and urban.
Mhm.
Could we get a link to that? so that we
Yeah,
can look at it?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, some of our accomplishments for the year, and I just wanna to caveat this with saying all of these were with collaboration with different groups. I'll try to call them out, but if I miss anybody, I apologize in advance. So we got the first neighborhood byway completed, and really Public Works and Matt was instrumental with his team in getting that done. This project was something that we were really excited about because we think it can be a model for our community on how people can utilize existing infrastructure to get around. And we even were able to host a kickoff event, although it wasn't a snowy November day. So people did come out, but it was pretty cold and maybe not as great a turnout if it had been 60 and sunny, but we still had a pretty good turnout, and we actually had e-bike demos there. And several people that had never rode a bike in our community actually were able to demo an e-bike, and they had some positive experience just being able to do that. One attendee, he brought his son there, and his son was so excited to get on the e-bike with him and try it out. So I think this sort of outreach is what we want to do more of in the future with the community, because I think it's really valuable to get feedback and to continue to engage with our community members. We also, at the event in September, we hosted a small booth to gather, and we gathered some community feedback. We had a few surveys. I think we got 16 or 17 surveys from that event. Interestingly, we got a lot of questions at our booth, people asking about the hillside bond as well, but that wasn't our topic. We were mostly talking about active transportation there. We've represented Cottonwood Heights at various meetings like WFRC, the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and we were able to identify some grants this year, like the ATIP grant and other sources for funding. And while not all of those we were able to implement or go after due to some of these grants having large match dollar values for the city, I think it highlights to me that in the future, this is something we can continue to do. So here's our list of priorities for 2025, and most of these are going to require collaboration with the city on some level. But the first one here is we really believe that a crash analysis studio could be beneficial to our community. And what this really does is this reviews all vehicle crashes, and especially pedestrian or cyclist or anyone on a scooter, any sort of transportation like that, where there's an injury or something happens. Then we look at those locations and determine if that's a high risk intersection or a high risk area, and we take action to try to address it right away. And this goes back to safety in the community, because I think if we implement something like this, we can really solve these areas where these issues are. And I think a good example of that in the past, that was something that came about from this situation, was the hawk light by the elementary school in Fort Union. That was something that we identified as a community, that this is an area where we have a safety issue, and then the city took action and came up with something. So I think we can do more in the future to continue to do that. So that's something we want to have a further conversation with the city and the council on, and see if this is something that you guys are interested in pursuing. And the second one here, again, finding funding grants. I think our subcommittee is more than willing to help with some of this process as well if we do find grants. And specifically, I know Public Works has identified Bengal Boulevard where they already have some funding. So addressing that so that we can build out a Category 1 bike lane and improve sidewalks and safety along that whole corridor, that could be really beneficial to the community. The other one here is a draft plan for Fort Union in 2300 East. And this is really just looking at how the Hillside Plaza development is going to take shape. But we really think that this has a big opportunity to have a downtown feel for our community. And so if we take action to include improved crosswalks, sidewalks, and separated bike and scooter lanes, then I think this would be it would really help the development to be successful for our community.
Explain the difference between category 1 and category 2. I think, right, it's 3 is there's just painted lines.
Mhm.
2 is there's painted lines, but there's actual kind of shoulder for them, right?
Yeah, so
And then
2,
one
there
would
might be a
like
buffer. There might be a buffer. Category 1 just means it's separated from the road. So like you're not sharing the road space with cars if you're using it.
For sure, the safest.
The safest and also the way to get the most users to utilize it.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last one on here, we would like to partner with the city again to host an event in May for Bike Month, and just thought that could be something we could continue to engage our citizens with. And then this is just looking forward longer term, but I think looking at planning grants for Fort Union to create a continuous corridor for active transportation, and this would be a partnership with Midvale and other communities in the valley, because usually when you get these grants for these corridors, if you work with other communities, you're more successful because it's a big grant to go for when you're talking about something as large as Fort Union. Secure additional funding for more crosswalks. This really aligns with parks and looking at ways that we can get our citizens to the park safely. And then looking at infrastructure on what should be streets versus roads, and then begin to address this in our community.
That's a good question. When it comes to Fort Union, are you mostly thinking Highland Drive West, or are you thinking the whole
thing, because
stretch?
then you have access to the canyons as well.
So do you know if there's any use difference with just the incline on Fort Union and Bengal? Obviously, for those going up to the canyon, it's awesome.
Mhm.
And it'd be amazing to have.
Yep.
But just I think a lot of us also talked about when you have a higher percentage of take, those families and people that are just going on a bike ride.
Mhm.
Do you think that some of our geography prohibits the use? Just because
I would say in the
incline?
past, it would be a challenge, but nowadays
Because of
having
the
all the
e-bikes.
e-bikes and scooters, and now there's longboards that are motorized, right? Like whatever you like to ride on, they pretty much have motorized it. So
Okay.
I think we're a community where that's critical for the average user, because not everyone is an elite cyclist that can go up the steep hills in our community. And so I think that's the key, is making it safe for all users to utilize.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that safety thing is critical. I was just going over some data, and I shared it with Suzanne here. There were 342 bike crashes in Utah over a 5-year period or so.
Mhm.
And then 104 of those deaths were deaths on e-bikes,
Mhm.
which is 45% of all micro devices.
Yeah.
Speed. And those, it didn't say speed or what was the cause, but those were just deaths on e-bikes alone.
Okay.
So that's really critical that we come up with some solutions that add to the safety of our streets for folks that are using these devices
Mhm.
as we continue to see them become more and more.
Yeah, and I think if you kind of observe our community on an average, mostly the summer days, but even outside of that, you'll see kids now on e-bikes ripping down the sidewalk. And truthfully, that becomes then now a hazard to our pedestrians that are utilizing sidewalks. So
We were having this discussion.
this is why you need to have
2
both,
weeks ago, where does a bike end and where does a motorcycle start?
right?
And I don't
It's
really
at
know
that-
the answer.
I actually know the answer to that. Hugh Van Wagenen explained it to me from the Wasatch Front Regional Council Active Transportation. And that is that there are categories of e-bikes. And it's when the speeds are capable of going over, I believe it's 29 miles an hour. So the e-bikes are categorized, and at one point you reach this higher category
sure.
where they can go really fast, they can go 40 miles an hour or more. So the threshold is in the high 20s, almost 28 or 29 miles an hour. Now, my e-bike, my maximum speed is about 23 miles an hour. And so there is actually. But in the safe systems approach, which is part of the 2024 safety action plan, the comprehensive safety action plan, it emphasizes the importance of the very thing that Councilman Newell just brought up, and that is the various speeds. And all users of the road need to be clear on what their maximum speeds are. And if you were to cycle, for instance, on the Parley's Trail, there's certain downhill portions of that multi-use trail that goes into Sugar House. And it'll say that your bicycle maximum is, 15 miles an hour or 20. And going down some of those hills, I mean, if I don't brake, I'm going, 35.
I have broken the speed limit only on that trail.
Yeah.
On a bike.
But it is a
Not
really,
in a car.
it's a super important point that things are getting a lot more complicated. And you're so right, we don't want to endanger people on the sidewalk from scooters or, and it'd be interesting to know the number that die or get seriously injured on scooters. I mean, and I often wonder that in the downtown areas. So this is definitely something that we can get on top of, and it can be something we can take pride in our city, that we've thought this through and we're developing our streets, not just for what we did in the 20th century, but what's going on now and into the future with the popularity of e-bikes and other.
Last thing I want to say, I appreciate your approach on identifying certain corridors, because we are built out. I don't think we're going to be able to tackle every single street in our city, but create those veins that people can kind of focus their attention on that use. And we can then focus our attention on putting resources in those areas. I think that it makes a ton of sense. It's obviously, man, when I started talking to Matt Schiff, it's crazy how expensive these projects are. They are.
Well, the thing we need to remember, as much as we
Pricey.
love off-road trails, and they're, everyone loves to ride away from the road, but we have things already that exist. They're called local streets. And we can, with the active transportation subcommittee's guidance, identify just that, these neighborhood byways that help our residents to understand this is not only safer, but it's more enjoyable because the views are wonderful. It's quiet. The cars are moving more slowly. And as a person, I've used active transportation my whole life. It's much more pleasant to walk or roll on a small local street versus getting on those arterials where the cars are moving fast. It's noisy, it's dangerous. So we really do have that opportunity to have additional leadership here to take us to neighborhood byways. It seemed to me, may I ask the question? One time, I believe your subcommittee was wanting to support neighborhood byways that would focus into the new town center on Promenade and other streets. Can you speak at all to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's several really good candidates right around Promenade, as you mentioned, and then other neighborhoods in the community that have already been identified. So it's literally just if we have the funding to do signage and all of that, we can start implementing those right away. You mentioned price is one of the, or the cost is one of the biggest challenges. Mike, if you go to the next slide. Just a few resources I wanted to share. So this is a company, I didn't list the company name here, but they're called Vortex. They create these modular street design systems. And so one of the biggest challenges to improving safety is cost, as we know. And so this project can be completed in 2 to 3 days. And instead of costing tens of millions of dollars, this project can be done for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just something for you guys to all think about as we talk about some of the barriers to implementing these in our community, but this is a resource. Thank you. And then the last two things I mentioned is suburban experimentation with non-permanent features can be another way to improve, to calm traffic and improve safety. And you can get real-time community feedback with those. And then pedestrian bollards, like these metal ones pictured here, can be added to high-risk zones. So Hillside Plaza, this is something that might fit there, but it's something to consider as well. That's all I have. Any last questions?
So I do have a question for you, Zach. So, sorry. So I'm highly confident that there is not a directive to have the city make it more difficult for people to get around in a car. So I'm highly confident in that. And so I don't think you'll get a whole lot of support to try. I don't think it's the city's purpose to, I think if we can create safer ways for people to walk and roll, 100% in our purview. But I don't think we have anything close to a direction from our residents to get them out of a car. And so I also think there are some roads that are specific to moving people. And, Highland Drive is obviously one, Fort Union moves a lot of people east and west. So, how do we, as a council, listen to your great thoughts? And I think you're doing great work, but with understanding, and anybody else can chime in if they want, to not make people get out of their cars because it's awful traffic or because we're creating barriers for them to go from point A to point B. We want to help people ride and roll from point A to B, but not make it more difficult to make them do that.
Your point's spot on, and I think that's the reality of the way our community is built out. There was one thing I mentioned on the slides, and it's really looking at streets versus roads, so determining that, right? So if you want to move people through, you make it a road that can move cars maximum efficiency. It's separated, it doesn't have a lot of turn-in points, they're limited. It's almost like a divided highway, right? And it's made for maximum efficiency. So if we want to turn Fort Union into that, that's totally fine. But that's a decision we should make, right, as a community. And Highland's definitely that too.
So do you think, if we say, hey, Fort Union's a road that moves a lot of people east to west, that's a road where we need a protected bike
Yes,
way.
right,
Which
because
I
you
think we're
can't have
trying to
users
do.
on there.
Yeah, which we're
Correct.
starting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and like Wasatch, west of Fort Union, or north of Fort Union is a good example of it's a well-designed road that moves cars efficiently, right? There's not many turnout points and it's really wide.
Right.
And then, I would say, but if we want our town center to be a downtown feel, then those should really be streets, right? Where it's maximizing commerce, stopping in there and not just driving through, and it's supporting our local mission to bring people into that area.
Right.
So that's what we need to decide, and I think we're advocating for that. But if that's something that is not, what the council wants and you want, then
Do you think? Oh, go ahead, Matt.
It's hard to balance all of those things because I completely agree. I think making Hillside a place where people can walk and they can bike and there are a lot of locals, but then you're also thinking about how do we make it the easiest place for people outside of our city to also get to spend their money so that we get more tax revenue, so that we as residents pay less money on property tax, right? And that is a really, really tricky thing to balance. And I don't think, and all of us have talked about those things and it's tough. And for instance, you take Highland Drive and we're looking down where it's kind of that hodgepodge with the McDonald's and the Starbucks and people crossing all over the place to get through. And we've talked about wanting to maybe change some of those lanes to add more throughput and put a median so people can't cross, but then at the same time, that also might impact people that want to bike in that area as well. And it's hard to get all of it in an area that was built out decades and decades ago. I just want you to know that our intent is to try to do it all, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So what could we as a council do to help you? So, because I think, we want to obtain both objectives, I think, and is it just the classification of road versus street? Is that a good starting point? Is that something your committee wants to take on and bring it to us? How can we help you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, for one thing, how you can help us is if we get funding sources for any of these projects, right? Then kind of collaborating with us and identifying if that's something that we can pursue, if the city has the budget for it and has the desire to do it. Number two, yeah, I think it comes down to, I mean, I think we have some work to do as a community then, if that answer isn't apparent right now and what we want that to be, to collect that data and determine how many cars are just cutting right through Fort Union to go up to the canyons and how many are stopping through Not that we necessarily have a ton of businesses there that are drawing a huge influx of people yet, but that's, that's the question I think that we have to answer before we decide on how we're gonna do it.
Great.
Well, I will say that I would admonish the Subcommittee on Active Transportation and the council to refer to what has come our way in this calendar year, and it's through in large part a year's worth of work by Matt Ship for the entire calendar year of 2023. He served on the Wasatch Front Regional Council Comprehensive Safety Action Plan Committee. They completed that template early this year. We've already used that comprehensive safety action plan, and it's very specific on all of these elements that we've been talking about. It gives us guidance. It starts right out by saying that speed is critical to safety. And so we need to, as a council, decide if we're going in earnest for the comprehensive safety action plan. The very first step is to accept that we acknowledge that there's a need for speed management. And if we don't take that first step, it's the first of 5 steps, then I don't see how we're going to develop a safety action plan. This is our opportunity to follow the template. It's very well spelled out, and the very first step is whether we prioritize safety over throughput. And if we prioritize throughput, and LOS is more level of service, more important than safety, that's a decision that this council majority has to make to give guidance to the subcommittee.
Well, let me say thank you, Mike. As you know, I know we did before. Thank you for your years of service and for all that you've done for PTOS. And so your term ends when?
Term as chair, 2 weeks.
So are you staying on?
Yeah, I'll still be. a
Okay,
committee member.
good. Okay, then it's not a
Yeah.
eulogy. But thank you. We appreciate all that you do. Honestly, it blows the council away all the time that you all spend and to make our city a great place. Thanks, Zach. This is a fun little, this is a good little committee that I think we're excited to explore and get your expertise in. So thank you.
Important work.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Okay, we have 2 staff reports on our agenda, item number 4, and we'll start with item 4A, and it's labeled as a senior activities discussion. And I know we've all been interested in this. I was gonna actually bring this up at the retreat and decided to actually why wait. And so because I think, and we'll do this as we get into a discussion, that there is a consensus for us to, we do not have a senior center in our city. The closest one we have, I think, is in Sandy. Is there one in Holiday? There's one in Holiday, and I think there's one in Sandy. So
And in Draper.
and in Draper. So 3 of our surrounding communities have one. We do not. The other 3 are all county run. So as we've talked about some of the things that we want to do at Hillside, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about implementing senior-based activities. And so what I mean by that is, we have a beautiful Colmore community room that I think we could start doing activities on it. And we don't have to go crazy, but I think once a month we start and we try to get the word out through social media and we let staff, get involved and to help create some type of senior-based activity and gauge, kind of do a pilot almost and see how many people are interested and come and take part. I've also thought that maybe, once a month that we could do something with the rec center. So maybe twice a month, there would be senior-based activities, once here in the community center. I know Matt's had discussions with the rec center, that we could also do a second activity during the month at the rec center, and whether it's water aerobics, something to benefit our senior community. I'm not gonna do.
I was gonna claim it.
Today, we're announcing the chair.
I want
Yes.
to mention, when we were at the 50th anniversary of the Whitmore Library, I talked to the chair of the Salt Lake County Council,
Yep.
and she actually recommended that we start doing this in our community, so then we could demonstrate a need for a senior center when they redo Whitmore Library, we could get a senior center perhaps adjacent to that.
Hmm.
And it does make sense that we're like the oldest average age community in, you know, the Wasatch Front, and we don't have a senior center. So I fully support this. I was also gonna bring it as a retreat item, but
Right. See a partnership with the county, let them. Take on the expense. But I think it's really important for the demographics that we have here in our community. That's growing.
and I don't know if it's.
And the
once or
rec
twice a
center
month,
already
but-
has quite a few offerings. I know when I come out of my yoga class, there's a senior yoga class, seated yoga, and they do programs in the swimming pool. And so I think that we have a leg up and it can be on the way. And I would recommend too, I know I have a lot of seniors in District 4. We have seniors in every district, and I think it would be great to welcome their ideas, what needs are being met already, what would they be interested in seeing more of, and make sure that this, whatever we do design and offer is, something that fills the need. I'm sure the staff is thinking about that and can do that, but I would love to think of a way to, do outreach and make sure that we're, again, aligning with what some of the seniors want. If it would be interesting to know, are they looking for a lounging type experience like that is offered in other places, or do they want, what level of vigorous activity or non-vigorous? So, I like others, probably everybody at the table has been thinking about this. I know for me, when I campaigned, I had a lot of my constituents who wanted to know if I was going to get them a senior center. So the time has come, and I think this is great I really support it and appreciate that the mayor is advancing senior activities in a more formal way, and starting out once a month or something is a great idea.
The executive director of the Utah Commission on Aging lives in our community, Creek Road. I'll wait to reach him.
They also have our
Province.
neighbor, Mary Wiley, that just built those homes right here next to us, that is involved in the senior community along with stuff, a couple of different projects. So I think we have some great resources here to be able to.
Yeah.
come on this place.
So I figured we'd have 5 people in support, right?
Yeah.
Matt, you're not? Wow.
Bingo fights.
Arts and aging, that's one of the things that you talked.
I'm all in.
On aging, yes, arts and-
I'm all in.
We have a few minutes. Is there any activities that you've thought about that would be fun? I know we'll probably, like you said, we have people participating in other
Well,
senior
one
centers,
thing-
we engage the county, but
Well, I will say, seniors vary a lot. Technically, I'm right in there in the middle of the senior thing, and my idea of a good time is going to be different. But the thing that I can tell you about elder care is that one of the key things is transport. And so I think we need to be thinking, if we offer something, that we think about some way to offer transportation to help seniors get to whatever it is we're offering, if that's at all possible. And I'm not suggesting that we purchase some new vehicle, but I know we get the youth city council around in a van so I think the city owns at least one van, but I can say that as an elder caregiver before my mother died, and talking to again, women and men who are in that position right now, getting that senior to whatever activity may be offered it is a challenge for those who are the elder caregivers. So I'd love to see transportation weaved in if at all possible.
I agree completely. I think that's something to look at.
Yeah,
I think
They have they have a call system. However, I think that you're often expected to walk a block or so to get to where the van picks you up. So I don't know that would really work for the senior program.
I think exploring that is absolutely valid, and I think it would fall under the purview we're looking to achieve.
We talked about activities. One of the things that in the groups that I'm working with, they're working on mental stimulation that keeps people cognizant. And, having games, I just say like Mahjong, some of these other things that bring people together. Not bingo, because we can't gamble within
Well, I thought- yeah, I thought it was one game too.
I know, but we won't have money there, so.
Code enforcement doesn't know what that means, so.
You're just winning candy though, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
There you go.
But things like that that are, I think, are easy for us to host. Where they're just stimulation games and things like that, that just bring people together to have an activity where it's competitive and you can get your mind going and not have to exert yourself too much. I think those are great ways to take those baby steps to where we want to get to.
Well, and I would say, and can actually additionally to that wonderful idea, you know, it's now coming out statistically that loneliness is a bigger risk factor than even heart disease and other things for seniors. And so for many seniors, it's the camaraderie, right? So I don't know that it necessarily has to be a vigorous, or even though mind stimulation is wonderful. I think for a lot of seniors, it's the idea of being in proximity and not necessarily to other seniors. I'd love to find out if there's an appetite for something that we offer, but maybe over a 3-hour period of time that is multi-generational. Again, I think it'd be appropriate to offer some kind of survey. If I don't know, that's something we'll talk about at the retreat, but ways to get feedback from people in our community, both again, the elder caregivers as well as the seniors on, you know, what they're looking for to meet the needs of their loved ones.
There's lots of cool things you can do, especially with the high school so close, bringing in choirs to sing.
Yes.
And interaction between.
Yes,
There's lots of
music
cool
is so
Yeah.
great.
Please include the Arts Council. There's a list of teaching artists that are willing to come and teach right here on the
Painting
Utah.
classes.
In fact, to your point, when we were out here on the patio for the Light the Heights, I got to meet the symphonic band. Well, actually, he does several symphonic band jazz, and the group, I think they were the concert band. And I shook his hand, and he just came to Brighton High School. And was he ever enthusiastic when I said, "Wow, we're right across the street"? He goes, "Oh." And he goes, "These are the groups that I can get you," and I'll Jack, and he names them off, and he says, "We would love to come over and do more." So we might have a really good opportunity with Brighton High School, and it's a benefit to the students as well as to our seniors. I love that idea. Yeah.
Well, so I know Ann doesn't have enough on her plate.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know, I'll let you coordinate where and how that goes.
So there's lots of, no, yeah, so
But I think there's a clear direction that maybe
Yeah.
we start January with an activity.
I think we can let the
And it
Arts
doesn't have to
Council
be
take
super complex. Yeah, the Arts Council.
Take some lead on some of these
Yeah.
things, because.
I don't know where we could go on the hot seat too and do a Q&A with them once in a while too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and some of that traditionalist generation, I will say, you know, they took great pride in memorizing poems, and I think it's been so heartfelt. People I know in their 90s who can extemporaneously stand up and give you the cowboy poem and things like that. So there may be a lot of really performing arts, you know, related things that they would get a kick out of
Yeah,
doing.
great
Yeah.
thought, great thoughts. Well, good. Okay, I think that's a clear directive. Let's move forward. And it sounds like we need to document things and give them to the county too, so.
Yeah, that was one of the things I talked to Dan about, was making sure we're figuring out how many people we have there, where they're coming from. So that we can have that data for the county.
Okay.
And the director of county health department will be here next month, and I mentioned to them to bring, or at least get some background on aging services, because that falls under them as well, so. Which is, there's a group that runs the senior centers. So
Great.
she may bring the director of aging services over.
Is that Joey? I forget her last name, Joey
Yeah, you're gonna be on the spot.
McNamara or something
Yeah,
like that.
I've got it.
I met her at the Whitmore Library event, like you were
Oh, yes.
talking about, yeah. Joey McNamara or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Awesome. Item B under staff reports is entitled, and it's the last one, the Danish Road Traffic Control Demonstration Project follow-up. You remember from a couple weeks ago, we talked about some items with our city engineer, Matt Shipp. So Matt, we're gonna let you kind of give us some background of what you've found out. I know we have to look at a couple of things, and we're excited to talk about it again.
Yeah, so this, like you said, Mayor, this is a follow-up from our last discussion when we brought in the speed data for Danish for Danish Road and what was happening through there. Some questions were raised by, council members about doing some traffic calming on the roads, and there were some different ideas tossed out, and some of the ideas involved demonstration projects. Did I do that? Good, are you?
Yeah,
Oh, is it moving on its own? I don't,
I think you got it.
my words are down there too.
Let's say you say.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, you're-
Oh, sorry. So anyway, sorry. Wow, this new technology is blowing me away. Don't laugh. You know, you're as bad as I am.
That's
So
why I'm
anyway,
laughing with you, not at you.
What the council asked that I bring back some ideas of some of these, various demonstration projects that we, might be able to implement or look at implementing, or and not just Danish Road, but other locations we might have you want to consider. So these are just some things I pulled off that are discussing it, and we can talk about it. The first one, this is, like I said, very basic, very simple. This one seems a little rough, obviously by looking at it, but it looks like a demonstration project. This is a pedestrian crosswalk. It appears to be adjacent to a park. They're starting the project. What they're doing is they're doing bump outs. These are what they call bump outs. These are what narrow a lane in between, like a crosswalk or an intersection. So this bump out, and we have one of these, or a couple of these actually in the city. Over here on 2325, we have a physical bump out. It's not as big as this one, but we do have a couple of these that are in the city that are permanent. This is just, like I said, you asked to go out and find some demonstration type projects, and this is one of those. I've got a handful of these to show you, so at the end we can kind of bounce back if you want and get in a little more detail. This also is another example of using the delineators, if you will, as this is another bump out. This is at an intersection. The difference on this one is this is a one-way road, as you can see. It's in a downtown area, but nevertheless, it's an idea where what you're doing is you're shortening the crosswalk for pedestrians. If you look at it, there's the bump out. It gets them only having to cross one lane versus two. So there's an idea. This is, I found this one interesting when I looked for it. This
Is there
is,
any good looking options?
we're coming to a few ideas, okay? I didn't throw out the worst things in the world to try to dissuade. I'm not doing that. These are just some ideas that are out there. These are once again, they are demonstration projects though, and they're meant to put out there to show, take numbers before and numbers after to show what kind of an effect that demonstration project is.
Well,
It's not always the most beautiful thing, but as you build it, it becomes later.
Well, and I even see here where they have a sign that says, this is a chicane. Like, I don't think it could hurt anything for us to explain, maybe with a dignified, attractive sign, something that explains to the community, you know, this is our temporary demonstration project in an attempt to slow the speeds. You can see they put in planters, which would add a little beef. You know, we could even imagine this, put flowers or some kind of evergreen in the winter time. Because I know I've had people say, well, oh, they're so ugly, but here's what my point is. Safety should be, safety should come first, and I really applaud our public works director for showing that there's some very inexpensive things we could do tomorrow. You know, I think this is great.
Okay, so bouncing along, yeah, this is, you can see a construction project going on further up the road here. I don't know if this was part of that, but it appears it was more of a traffic calming idea that they wanted to try. I don't know the history of any of these, so I'm just reading between the lines, just like you would be doing.
They have tried these in Salt Lake too.
What's that?
Haven't they tried these in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, and we've actually got something coming up that'll show I pulled a couple of Salt Lake ideas as well. This is the same, now this is in an intersection. This is what you would, this is a couple of what you would call a couple of traffic circles, but they're offset on each side of the intersection. Normally, a traffic circle would sit in the middle. And it's not a roundabout. Roundabouts are for moving large volumes. Traffic circles are to slow people down in residential streets.
You know what comes
Roads.
to mind for me on this is the offset, where Danish Road is a little bit offset as it goes through, north-south through Creek Road. And something, that's positioned, on the north and south side of Creek Road there on Danish could be a real way to signal that as those people turn in, going north or south, we're sending the signal to slow down and,
So if you want to see where these are put in place, you know, those flyers that I bring, I'm telling you about Carol's Bakery. But right by their bakery, there's a ton of those. And, you know, Ellen, you're not gonna be surprised by this. I have mixed emotions on them. Because they make them pretty, they put some stuff in the middle, trees and other things. And they're giant things that make it so you can't see some kid on a skateboard that's crossing the street that you're about to hit.
but here's the thing, it's all about speed reduction. So even though it may feel uncomfortable for you as a motorist to slow down, it is the ability to stop on a dime. As soon as you see the child on the scooter, you're going 20
As
instead of
soon as I
40.
see it, that's the problem.
Yeah, but here's the thing, that has been proven, it's in the safety action plan, that if you widen roads and make the visibility, it tells the motorist to go faster. And your ability to come to a stop,
Is really
like
good.
imagine on Wasatch Boulevard,
No.
as the motorist that just sadly ran into the woman on SR 190, if he had been going 20 or 30 miles an hour, he could have stopped when he saw her. But when you're going 35, 45, 55, who knows? We still don't
I
know
think
what
those
speed that motorist
situations
was
are hard to
traveling.
make those assumptions.
But when we
But
know
in
a
all
place,
fairness, I'm just letting you know, if you want to go look at them, that's where.
Where were they? Now, where's?
Sugar House area, you know where Millie's is?
Mhm.
No.
You and I know where Millie's is. Of course, these other people don't know where Millie's is.
Lincoln
Street and just
north of 21st South.
Yeah, just north of 29. That's exactly right. So you can see them in real life yeah.
21st South and what east?
So, we all.
Between like Ninth and.
It's about 940 East,
Okay.
Lincoln Street.
Yeah.
well, the next time you're eating that eclair, take out the comprehensive safety action plan and start reading through it. That
Deal.
might be, because that's based in scientific data.
Okay,
Okay, Matt, keep going.
I hope I don't raise more emotions on these.
Well, you're really displaying emotions. so.
Yeah.
So this, just to give you an idea, this has been floated a couple of times in the city in a couple of locations, using delineators as separated bike path, if you will, on certain roads. Once again, this is a one-way street in a downtown area. Nevertheless, this is an idea of what they would look like if you were to put them up on streets. So FYI, just wanted to bring different options as you look at it. This, once again, this is a bump out. Yeah, this is what would be considered a bump out. You can kind of see where they've put in bumper blocks as well as these to narrow the road or to force traffic over into there.
Do those get screwed into the road or glued? Do you
Which
know?
ones?
The white.
Candlesticks or whatever
Those are called
Yeah,
delineators.
you would talk, you can do a couple of ways. Sometimes you just tar them down so that they're, you're not drilling a bunch of holes in the road, but yeah, there's different ways to do it.
Well, speaking of places you can see these, I took pictures when I was at the Costco in Sandy, real southern Sandy. I got out of my car and they had them and they screwed into the asphalt, and so 4 screws held the delineator in place. And it was for the very reason of making the parking lot safer for pedestrians there at Costco as the cart rolled into the parking lot. So
That's an annual installation, right, after the snow season?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
they're always laying down. That's why I see a lot of them, even in Salt Lake City. I see
Yeah.
them.
Okay, so another one, this will be a bigger picture. This is, once again, a demonstration project of a chicane. This one's a little cleaner than the other one, and you can kind of see what it looks like. This neighborhood, there was a little history on this one. This neighborhood got together and you can see them all over there, and they were finding ways, and this is a demonstration project. This was back east. I forget exactly where. But it's a clean demonstration project of what a chicane could do, just FYI. These are traffic circles like we talked about. This is an offset traffic circle. Once again, this one is really low cost, hay bales. But just showing you the different things that are out there, the cost effectiveness, once again, if I recall reading the history on this one, there was once, a neighborhood. Most neighborhoods have things that they have issues with, and this is one of their solutions for a demo. This is a traffic circle as a demonstration project. This, as you can tell, is the city of Palo Alto. Simple demonstration project, a traffic circle. Once again, traffic circles are not meant to transport a lot of volume. They're meant to slow you down in residential areas, and this is one of those. It's usually done at a four-way location also, so kind of slows you down. Here's a little cleaner and prettier looking one, Councilmember Holden, that you asked about. Demonstration traffic circle. This is, I believe, once again, might be somewhere in California, I don't recall. Just another idea to put in front of you. Now, when we talked about Salt Lake, this one is the one that I pulled up, I believe. You can see, yeah, those are the chicanes that I showed you earlier. If you look in the bottom corner there, you can see that one layout right here. Oh, I can't even get my mouse. There it is, right here. But you can see they laid out a plan and mapped it. They have a bump out, which is right here at this location at the bottom. Up here, they have a couple of these chicanes right here. And then sorry, I really messed up. I don't have the picture going higher, but you can see they have, oh yeah, they have these planter boxes inside of these chicanes type thing. And then different ideas there. So there's a couple of other demonstration projects. Just to give you an idea though, when you build these, this is the engineer in me coming out, so I apologize, but when you build these, there are some standards you need to follow. There are lines of sight. There are things you need to look at. Granted, these things do tighten things up and it does slow traffic down. But you need a certain space amount, like for instance, the one at the top is you're taking two lanes and you're pushing them down into one lane through a chicane. So you have to stop and wait. Really low volume roads, if you will, but high speeds. The bottom one is you're allowing flow both directions within a chicane, which basically what it does is it forces you to slow down and go and make a curved movement, if you will, through here. But there is some thought that goes into these locations that we need to consider when we look at these. And then finally, one of the questions that was raised I guess I should back up. Are there any questions about those? I mean, those are some ideas. I was asked to bring ideas back.
To you that made more sense than another?
To be honest with you, I gotta say, I like all of the ideas. I like the ideas. I like the idea of traffic calming. I think it's a great thing. But the idea of traffic calming, I think, needs to be well planned and it's well thought out, and it has a method of how we're applying it. So these demonstration projects, as Councilmember Burrell has pointed out, are very important when we do these, because if you ask me, is it going to work? I can go out and for very low cost, put these up, run a study before, run a study after, and give you some ideas. So any one of these are great ideas. They don't all fit in the same place though. They just aren't, it's not a cookie cutter. For instance, and that kind of moves us along to the last picture here. This was Danish Road. There are places on Danish Road where the road narrows down to 20 feet of asphalt. There are sections of Danish Road, and I had my staff go out earlier today. It's hard to see these numbers, But it goes anywhere from 30 feet to a location of 40 feet where this, we talked about this new home going in. This tight section that I believe has been brought up a few times, where the road averages about 21 feet through that tight section. So doing things in there gives me a little heartache. Doing it before and after, not so much, because there's a little more space to slow them down. But putting things in the middle of that would cause the lanes to be so narrowed up that it would be, it also takes, it adds a safety factor as well for the driver. And especially, like I said, in the winter, doing it through that section, given the plow sizes and what we plow with, it would be a very difficult thing not to knock them over every time.
Question for-
But I'm sorry, Matt, but on the north end and the south end of this section, there are things I think we could look at and actually do that would slow them down going into it and give cause to think, if you will.
Could we task you with coming up with by our retreat, a couple suggestions on the road that are fairly hopefully inexpensive to
Yeah, for
pilot?
sure. Yeah, they're like, you saw a lot of these things. I mean,
They look,
a lot of these things, you're talking a couple of $100 of material just to set them out there, and the signs to post them with really aren't that. I mean, the cost is negligible, if you will. But yeah, I'd be happy to look at them along the way, and see what there are things we can do. I sat down with staff this afternoon and we talked about a few of these ideas, so happy to do it.
Okay.
And bring things back to you with some layouts and some dimensions, actually, to give you a better idea. But I do, sorry, Councilmember Holton, I cut you
No, I was
off
literally
earlier.
just, and maybe the chief knows this, have we done speed checks on that street? And then I'm just wondering if in that area that it narrows, if they are going slower compared to where it is wider, or if they're going the same speed regardless of how it narrows or widens. And maybe we don't know that.
I don't know that we know that. We have done speed checks there, but I don't know that we've isolated
you
those.
could probably move one of
We
the
can-
radar signs there to.
We can
gauge it.
isolate it with one of our others. Our others that doesn't,
Just the thought of
Show-
as we talk about as
so
things
that we can
narrow,
get a
people
real
go
ghost
slower, I'm just
look of it
curious
and get
if
a
they
better
actually
look.
do change that behavior.
We'll put something up between now and the retreat as well, kind of give a better idea of at least through that stretch of road that we're talking about. We have numbers north and south off the radar signs
Yeah.
that gave us a pretty good indication of what's happening. But through that stretch, that's a good question. We don't have anything in that particular location. But we'll take a look, and I'd be happy to I will bring it back to you for discussion and some layouts, but
Again, I think if you were to review the safety action plan and go through the 5 steps and the main mandates of it, you will see that redundancy is one of the key things to keep people safe. So it only takes one car speeding to kill that child who's walking to the bus stop. And I think that the whole thing of being proactive instead of waiting for the tragedy. So we can be on the front side of this, we can protect our citizens, and we can make sure that the cars that are going 25 to 45 miles in the straight areas get to those narrow, because one of the narrow areas is windy as well as narrow. And we want the cars preferably to be moving at 15 or 20 miles an hour, not at the full 25. So posted speed limits do not equal safety. I just want to emphasize that. Posted speed limits do not equal safety.
Matt, so anything else, or is that?
that was it. Y'all
Awesome.
asked me to bring some
Thank
pictures
you.
back and some ideas, and so there you go. And we'll come up with something for the retreat
Awesome.
to give you some ideas.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Matt. Sure.
thank you.
Okay, item 5, just a quick review. So December 20th, we have the Public Works first annual sock drive. But by the way, I think this is awesome, Matt. I think that you're doing this.
I'd like to give credit to Kim,
Okay,
our new administrative assistant there. She came up with this, and
Keller, thank you.
we're taking them in Friday.
Okay.
FYI, so if you do have any you want to bring down, we're taking them in on Friday, and I don't know if he's given you a number.
So, it just says donations will be accepted Monday through Friday, 7 to 4 at the Public Works Building. The public can drop off new socks of all sizes, kids and adults, the socks will be donated to families in the road home.
Well, to date, just for your information, maybe for the public that's listening, if you want to share with people, we've been able to collect around a little over 1,100 pair of new socks.
Awesome.
Different sizes, shapes, everything. So it's been a great, and I was telling staff the other day, you put a contest in front of a bunch of alpha males, you're gonna, they'll spend $300 to try to win a $20 prize. So it's, anyway, just thought I'd share
Your
that.
department deserves some.
No, that Kim, I would like to give Kim all credit.
Awesome.
Kim Daly, she's been wonderful in orchestrating this.
Tell her thank you.
Yes, and what's nicer than warm feet in a cold winter when you're struggling with homelessness? That's wonderful.
December 31st, the holiday book drive, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, drop off locations here at City Hall and at the Rec Center. Book collection by Marianne Jensen, Miss Cottonwood Heights teen, also our East City Council mayor.
We have the corner on the market here.
Yeah, so January 3rd is an Asian arts and culture exhibit. It'll be here at City Hall from 8 to 5. And then January 14th, well, actually, I think we're gonna probably say 14, 15. They're planning on the state of the city and the first 20th birthday celebration of our great city. And then January 25th, we're planning a Chinese New Year celebration from 10 to 12 here at City Hall. We do have an item to discuss in a closed session today, so I'm going to entertain a motion to exit our work session and go into closed
I
session
will
to
make a-
discuss possible property litigation, or property acquisition, not litigation.
I didn't tell you.
I will make that
Buying
motion to
property
close our work
litigation.
session and open our closed meeting.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
I'm all in.
Mayor, I'd like to invite